Oops, is this on? Yep, there we go. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I call the January, the January 19th, 2022 meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission to order. First and foremost, is there anyone on the phone?
Yes, this is Monica.
And Joe Williams.
Fantastic. Hello. So let's start with the approving of the agenda. Does anyone, first of all, have any item that they would like to add to the agenda? If not, can I get a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item is to approve the minutes of the November 17th, 2021 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right, the first item on the agenda then is the review of call for public art projects. Does staff want to speak?
Good afternoon, everybody. So for this item, we, maybe just a quick update. We have a draft in the call for public art projects. We have taken kind of a pathway, if you will, in the development of this and have consulted with Reach Partners as well as the Arts Partnership to help in just getting us other pairs of eyes on some standards that we've done in the past. And it's been an iterative process over the last 6 or 7 years as we do calls for our public art requests. Since you've seen it last, one major change is we changed the name to call for public art projects as opposed to call for artists. One of our consultants noticed that, kind of aspect that what are we seeking, and how to participate in that. And so we thought that was a good call. We are budgeting, just you've seen a difference in numbers, both in the memo and then within the packet itself of between 40 and 45,000. And just to call attention to that, we are looking at more at 45,000. I know it says 40 in the cover memo. And just for the public who might be listening, looking at opening a call for public art projects or ideas, if you will, that can be funded in between $5,000 to $15,000 increments. We don't foresee, or at least we haven't had that in the past, where we have one. First of all, this is the most we've done it in any one allocation. Usually we do $15,000 as that maximum. And we haven't in the past received applications that were asking for that amount of money, not to say something might not come in. So it's a little bit of a, we'll see what comes in and then adjust and advise accordingly. Basically, here to answer any questions. One of the last things we'll do as we move forward is take this to the City Commission for the to get that budget allocation confirmation. It's just, and so we'll set those dates that are on page 2 in terms of when the application opens. We like to set a Q&A session that we would hold at the city and virtually for anybody that might have questions as they work through the process. And then we'll allow at least 6 weeks before we close that application. And so those dates that you see on page 2 that are highlighted in yellow, we'll put those in at the last step as we go through that last technical review. It was a little bit of a journey getting here in terms of, you might remember in the November meeting, Rachel with Reach Partners presented, kind of different types of projects with a vocabulary as we look on our work plan. And then, one of the things that's unique, you might remember me coming in front of you last year about a neighborhood improvement project with the Kresge Foundation. And as we started talking through staff and with the Kresge Foundation, people, maybe as an update on that, instead of thinking of those as two separate projects, we'd like to think of it as Part A and Part B. So Part A would be, there might be community members, artists out there that are already thinking in this way for neighborhood improvements, community involvement, things like that. And so as a way to kind of seek those out, we put a special focus optional in the call for public art projects. And so if some ideas might come through that way, we would like to know about those and seek if there's an opportunity to connect them with the Kresge Foundation work. So we put the Kresge Foundation work, for those that have volunteered in the past, we put those a bit on hold until we can kind of get this process going. What we were finding from staff is we were trying to do too many things at once, and so trying to focus one thing at a time and prioritize our projects and processes as we kind of get traction. And so I think I'll stop and answer any questions. If you'd like me to walk through it in more detail, let me know. We also did bring this to the, I want to thank John Offit, Brad Bachmeyer, and Joe Williams. They met with me a couple of times providing feedback. Hopefully we captured that feedback, but always open for further questions and adjustments as needed. We would seek your approval tonight to recommend to the City Commission. If you, however, need more time, we'd be glad to hold that until we can make any other final edits that you might feel needed.
So just to clarify, my understanding then is the hope and the intent is that this would be ready to be issued to the public at the end of this month, correct?
We would like, if City Commission, we're estimating this would go on the consent agenda for next Monday night at City Commission. If that goes through successfully, we would basically have the green light to initiate the program. And so with some minor tweaks and you just with the dates and things, we would probably try to go live by the end of January.
Okay. Thank you.
Question.
Sure,
On
Tracy?
page 6 of 7, it shows a sample budget, and the figure in there is 9,000. That's just a placeholder. It could be 40, 45,000, correct?
Well, we would like to, kind of in the front end is, we would like to offer, this would be great discussion for right now, is in our thinking is we'd like to see a maximum of 15,000 so that we can offer it to at least 3 different projects. Is kind of nothing saying it has to be that way, but that's just kind of what we're used to working with. And so we'd be up for discussion if you think that should be broader.
I think from our subcommittee discussion, I would just call attention to and sort of applaud in here the call that is sort of broadening, if you will, sort of that narrow definition of an artist and including culture bearers and really more ideas for just about anybody in the community to get involved. And then also the connection with the neighborhood plans. I think those are just nice improvements to this entire sort of process and call.
John?
On page 2 of 7, to look at the dates, the application closes 25 days after it opens, and the review process gets 6 to 10 weeks?
No, and that's, that's a draft. We would, from the date of opening, we would allow at least 6 weeks of an open application. So we'll put those dates in at the very end. So just pretend those dates aren't there right now. Thank you. I guess I just want to clarify, Tracy, did we answer your question, or does that seem, does the commission want to discuss that further? Are you okay with the, kind of maximum $15,000?
I think it's kind of hard to say without knowing what we're going to get.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure, let's shoot for the 15,000, but if something amazing comes on, then I think we need to revisit.
Yeah, I think as long as it's not a requirement, but it's just, that's our internal guideline that we're thinking through. I think that seems reasonable.
Great.
Anne?
Just in reading the materials in preparation for today's meeting, I wholeheartedly support the inclusion and recognition of the neighborhood plans. I actually was kind of thrown off reading the call because I'm like, are we asking, which are we asking for? And so I don't know if it's a matter of the language and how it's worded. We're putting out a broad call, but then saying we particularly encourage this one thing. And so I don't know, I just, when I was reading through, I was kind of like, well, does that mean that there's preference given to this neighborhood-driven project, and that would be scored higher in a matrix or a rubric? Or is that just trying to get people to consider looking at a neighborhood plan? So I don't know if maybe it's clear to other people, and I just was kind of thrown off in my own mind.
So I'm looking at the language on page 1, the special focus optional. So is that kind of like speaks to, but it still is optional. So it's not determined for sure whether or not it's going to go in there, or?
Yeah, so maybe what I'm hearing is a different way of saying an optional, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe there's some wordsmithing that could be done to better explain that, there's background and interest and support in tying public art into our neighborhoods. And that there's an opportunity here for those that are interested in exploring that to tailor a proposal with that plan in mind. I think it's the optional that's really, I'm like, well, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
is it optional to get funded? Is it, and then also the fact that there's additional dollars available if someone were to choose to go down that route. I feel like, in the interest of transparency, being a little bit clearer about what that means, because is that an extra $5,000 you might have an option for, or is it an option to double the size of your scope and project? Like, there's a big difference there, I think. And I think it's just in terms of wording and clarity is what I'm seeking. And again, it could just be my reading this afternoon, so.
Yeah, so and I asked Megan to come, she pointed out, and Ann, you mentioned it too, but maybe just for the microphone, if you just want to go ahead and say it, Megan.
Yep, yeah. Thank you, Commissioner, that there is the note on the bottom of page 1 of 7 that the projects focused in the Madison Unicorn neighborhood may have additional funding opportunities. And I know that you saw that, but yeah, understand that the points that you're trying to make, and that and also probably in the criteria, it's described a little bit, but could take some more effort into clarity, as you were saying.
Yeah, so, kind of the context, Reach Partners saw, they helped us kind of, you can imagine all the goals we're trying to take on as part of the public art master plan. And so how do we, along with all the strategic goals that the city of Fargo has on an annual basis. And so we're trying to wrap all that together in a call for public art ideas is pretty much the way you can say it. And so the context for how Reach Partners offers this language, and I'll just kind of read it for the record and the audience here, is this year the ACC is making a call for projects and is inviting the community members propose a project free and accessible to the community, visual or performance-based, permanent or temporary, and within the public realm. Also new to the process, the ACC includes culture bearers and traditional artists, community members, and even city departments in the invitation. As an optional take on the proposal, the ACC invites people to consider the Madison Unicorn 2021 Core Neighborhood Plan and Development of a project. And so, and it goes on to say more, but I think the essence of what we're trying to do, we can certainly work on clearing this language, but just to explain where we're coming from a little bit on the staff level, because maybe you might have some ideas on how to help it, is we're basically trying to say we have this funding opportunity for artists and community to kind of play in this public way that's, general funded, allocated for making of public art and, or experiencing public art, however you want to describe it. Additional to the city of Fargo, we have this core neighborhood plan. We have a lot of activities and ideas going on in community neighborhoods. And so to inform artists who choose to want to participate as part of the city of Fargo's, mission for 2022, we want to kind of invite into that discussion so we, the city, can learn how to work with artists in a more collaborative way for those artists that choose to. There's some artists who already have ideas and ways of working in community or working in public that may not want to choose to participate in this realm. But besides the general fund dollars, we also have access to Kresge Foundation dollars specific for the Madison neighborhood and for specific for neighborhood work. And so we're trying to lump those Part A and Part B together in a way that makes sense for the person that won't have that context.
Why are you trying to lump them together? They seem like different things to me. And your question of, are you going to get extra points if you aren't optional? So there should be competition for the Kresge funds and competition for the city funds. I don't understand how you're going to resolve it.
Yeah, I think it's, I think it's a great question. And, so we might have gone too far down this path. We're, trying to be efficient with staff time and advance public arts within the city operations as probably our first primary goal. And public art for public art's sake is also a goal. But our first priority is the core neighborhood plan because it also meets what we're doing in engineering, infrastructure projects, as well as housing and homeless projects, social justice projects, all sorts of things. And so we want to give artists that opportunity to participate in working in that space. And so we're trying to invite that curiosity in. There's going to be other measures. So, the next item on the agenda is the communications piece and outreach that would be part of this. So there's some element of this being able to stand on its own for, again, artists who are independent and are already wanting to do this work and might already, again, we are getting proposals right now without an application. So we have people that want to paint under bridges. We want people that want to do stuff. And so we're trying to give them a vehicle to apply for. At the same time, we're trying to advance the work of the city of Fargo's initiatives for 22, all as a place to start. There's going to be more steps and more opportunities along the way. And so, so why focus on the core neighborhood plan would be part of the messaging and that campaign as part of the outreach. So that's the next agenda item. And I thought about putting them together as agenda, but it might, and I don't know if we're ready to act on two different things, maybe not. But this is a great conversation, and this is exactly what we want to be having. So we're open to ideas.
I'm just wondering if you take that that segment and truly create a component of the call that just specifically talks to that. So all of that language is together and it's much clearer. It's not, well, you can kind of sorta and you might get, but really have clarity around what that means, right?
Maybe
And
just take that out altogether, and then maybe there's a part B for
Yeah.
those that want to work in that
Exactly.
space.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think the action today, though, is just to recommend approval to the city commission for the budget, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, and I should ask, sorry. a casual meeting, even though we have all these formal action items. Yeah, so I would like your permission to maybe not have to come back to the Arts and Culture Commission for the final vetting. And if you want to entrust, me to work with the subcommittee for that. I don't know if the subcommittee is willing to take on that duty. I guess I would hate for us to spend 6 months wordsmithing and to try to just.
So subcommittee, how do you feel about that?
I think we can handle it.
Yeah, very comfortable.
Great.
Okay, so I think, are we ready to vote, or are there other questions or discussion items that?
No, and it just for Deb, if you're getting ready to make that motion, just make just the 45,000 as opposed to 40.
Oh, yes, okay, all right. Yes, I will move that we recommend approval to the city commission to allocate 45,000 for the public art project program and to proceed with seeking proposals from the community on behalf of the Fargo Arts and Culture Commission.
I'll second.
All right, any other questions or discussions then before we vote?
One last thing, I would just say that I actually applaud that notion of trying to connect those additional dollars and also for the city to target areas of need. I mean, that's no different than what we're doing in the master plan. It's sort of like when there's an opportunity or when there's an area that needs work. So I think you're absolutely doing the right thing, and getting the communication and the wording down should be the easy part, so.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll just add, I appreciate the annual review of the process so that we continue to make improvements each year with the call for entry. So appreciate the staff and the subcommittee's work there.
Well said. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Motion approved.
So hopefully we'll get some proposals that will tag onto your wizard.
All right. Let's move on to the review of the communication plan for call.
Yes, so I debated about putting this together as one action item, but I thought that might be too confusing. So new this year is, as part of this outreach, and I guess just for the public and newer members, thanks to our pandemic, we did not do a call for art in 2020 or 21. And so it has been a little bit on hiatus. So we're, kind of ready to move forward with, stronger languaging, stronger purpose and mission. And so, working with Reach Partners, they helped us create kind of a communication plan. We've worked through this with Greg Schilberger and Ty Philly, our communications team that works in the government affairs. We don't necessarily, this is kind of internal purpose, for internal purposes, but you all are part of the communications team and the outreach. And so if you've got edits or additions or things you want to add to it, it can be, kind of a fluid document, but just also know that you're all part of our sphere of influence and communications as we do the outreach. So kind of putting this up for communications and also questions and answers for us, any messaging that you think needs fine tuning. And this might be a situation where I call on our development subcommittee, to help us with some of that communications fine tuning if things come up throughout the this plan of action and we get into any questions.
You bet. Okay. Any questions, thoughts? Yes, Sam?
I'm back with another word concern. It seems to be a theme. So the term tactic, communication tactics, for some reason that was like, it's just off with me. It feels like militant. I don't know. I think of it as a communication strategy, and maybe it's just semantics, but I don't know. It's just something that I read it and I was kind of like, just has a different tone than I would
Sure.
choose. And then also just, and I'm sure this would be updated, but the 45,000 instead of the 40,000 and the application details about opening and closing dates under
Yeah.
key messages would need to be modified to reflect what we previously discussed. So that's a couple of small comments.
I can certainly speak to that. This format was originally developed as part of the overall communication plan. It was just always a draft. So it's nice to see the action put in place for this project. And this initiative, I can say that tactic is meant to be literally the communication tactic or the action item for, point by point. And the strategies are called out on the front. What are the strategies we're trying to achieve there? And then how are we going to implement them tactically? So that was the intention. Yeah.
I take action over tactic myself, but it's
Sure.
semantic, so it's fine.
Sure.
I think one other tiny thing, and doesn't need to be in here, but underneath measures of success, I really like the idea of involvement and reaction of stakeholders. So that idea of bringing the stakeholders into whether or not we're being successful, I think is important, and involving the public a little bit more from the beginning, and also a reaction at the end to see how we're doing.
I might jump in here too, just to clarify, we have two different communications documents. One of them is specific for the call, and the other I'll talk briefly about, which was a laydown item, which is this one, which is kind of the overall communication plan.
Yeah, I was about to ask Brad where he was.
Yeah.
Talking.
On another document.
So hold that thought, Brad.
You got it.
Gotcha.
So somewhat joking / serious, as social media advances and evolves around us, how do we feel about, or where's the city headed when it comes to platforms like TikTok and other things? We still laugh about it. In fact, we were a half an hour ago. But the reality is that's a powerful platform to communicate. So we know the Facebooks and the Instagrams and so forth, but forward thinking, what does that future look like, and how are we preparing for that?
It's a great question. And so I think to advance from where we were maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we do now have a, kind of government affairs communications team in the city of Fargo who are a little bit more, that's what they do full time, know this stuff, research it. And the great thing is that we're able to, kind of integrate with them on different techniques. And so if we tell them what we're trying to do, they'll come forward. So I kind of rely on them being, the knowledge base on the technology. And, but, I think great question. I know that's something that the communications team is grappling with every day.
Sure.
And then also adding on that level of security and on all of the things that come with technology. So great question. I don't know if I have an answer for you, but and maybe at some point that would probably be a good maybe presentation from our communications team too at some point throughout the year as well to
Sure.
kind of share what they bring as part of a city administration.
Well, thank you. I know I kind of threw that out
No,
from left field, but as I read through this, that came to mind.
If I could speak for a second here, this is Joe. I know about 3 years ago, we approached the question about the use of social media for the Arts and Culture Commission. And if I recall correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, the city was hesitant at that time to engage social media for the Arts and Culture Commission. And so the question, the issue, I think, was tabled at that time. So I'm curious about the change position with the city on that.
Great question.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So let's see. So the conversation continues to evolve. I think one clarity point and probably an item for, kind of future discussion is, so the city of Fargo, based on that outreach that the Arts and Culture Commission did, does have a not active Fargo Arts and Culture Twitter page. And some of you might remember when we had a part-time staff member, that's basically all she could do was manage our social media and outreach. Since then, the city has grown their communications and government affairs kind of team and have a much more strategic outreach platform. And what they're asking of us currently, and as a staff, on behalf of the planning department, I concur that, we, Arts and Culture Commission, jump on their platforms and instead of its own handle per se, do, kind of so it's common messaging. Sure. The beauty of that is that it gets integrated into their whole operations and they're aware of the knowledge. They can, kind of do special stories, videos, all the things. And so that was actually something I was going to bring to you at some point is just kind of an update on, staff's request to kind of, honestly, we're not using the Fargo Twitter at all, as you can probably tell. And so, much rather, kind of staff it and go through that. We still have the logo, use the logo, all that kind of thing as, important messages come out,
Sure. Other questions?
I have one more question, and I assume that the talking points will be distributed, of course, to this commission, but other commissions, including the
Yes,
city commission.
absolutely.
That would be great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Does anyone, if there aren't any other topics of discussion, questions? Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
I can make that motion.
Thank you, Brad.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Not in favor, same sign. All right, motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the review of the selection committee process.
So I'll take this item as well. And so it's kind of a little difficult to explain succinctly, and it's a little unique on your memo. There's 3 motions on there, and I'd be glad to walk through each of those. But the best way I can explain it is we're trying to hybridize maybe some past practices of nominating our selection committee with some recommendations moving forward from the subcommittee, the capacity subcommittee. And so with that, kind of step 1, we would like to reach out to our current roster to see if they're still interested. It's been quite some time since they've submitted their names. Number 2, we would request from you people in your, again, circles and spheres of influence that you think would be good candidates for the pool. If you pass their contact information, we can reach out to them with a request. They, to go on this roster. What we do with projects, what we have done in the past, and what we would intend to do moving forward is when for the year of 2022, when we have projects to select from, typically we have a range of dates that we'd be looking at. We would, kind of send a email to ask their interest and availability for that period of time. And then from there, we would select representatives to be on that selection committee. And so in addition to this process, the subcommittee suggested, which staff would concur, that in the past, the Arts and Commission Board have been represented at these selection committees by the chair and vice chair, as well as the key staff. And so in terms of, if you can imagine the orienting a selection committee with a rubric and all of these things, and to kind of also be, kind of that gatekeeper and process and fairness and equity and all the things. But the subcommittee actually recommended that, one or two members from the board itself participate in this process if they're so inclined. And so that's one of the motions is if there's a person on the board that would like to be nominated or nominate themselves to participate in this process from a arts and culture committee member representative, liaison, if you will. And so, I'd be glad to answer any questions. That's just kind of a quick highlight of the memo, and I'd be glad to talk through the memo in more detail.
And as far as the one or the two people from the commission, we don't have to do a formal voting process, correct? It's just, I think, volunteering.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, first of all, are there any questions to the process that she's outlined? Oh, go ahead, Ann.
Is there a certain number of people that have either like been the maximum on the selection committee group, or a goal that has been set, in terms of growing that? Like how big are we hoping to get? Or
Personally,
not?
from a staff perspective, personally, broadness, diversity, outreach, growing that roster is, be a staff recommendation on my end. I think you'll find, at least we have, that time commitment is a burden depending on when it is that time of year. And so that's kind of a natural attrition in terms of availability. In terms of sitting on the selection itself, we'd probably suggest not getting larger than 7 as a recommendation, and the actual selection itself. And probably the volunteer from the Arts and Culture Commission, staff certainly doesn't vote, and we'd probably suggest from this is off the top of my head, that the selection committee representative not vote. I mean, the Arts and Culture Commission representative not vote either.
So I just meant in terms, right now, there's 19 names on the list.
Yeah,
So
it'd be great to double it.
yeah, I was just wondering
triple
what
it.
our target is. Like, should I send 50 names, 5 names?
I think 5 for now. So, because I guess my thought was if each of you give of us 5, then there might be some duplicates, but then that
Sure.
that broadens it to 50.
What do you mean by contact information?
Email and phone, whichever you have handy. Email's probably preferred.
I think part of this subcommittee conversation was, it just seems like a really good professional development opportunity for all of us at one time to sit on a jury committee and hear the conversation and go through the experience, because I think you just become more informed about what kind of applications you're getting, what the conversation is like, and I just think it's a good experience for all of us at least once,
Absolutely.
If people are willing. I'm not trying to volunteer people, I'm just saying I think it's just a good growth opportunity.
Yeah, so ideally, just to walk through that a little bit, I'm kind of thinking of potential conflicts. From a staff selfish perspective, is you might tap 5 people on the shoulder and say, "Hey, are you interested in doing this? If so, can I pass your name on to the city planning department? They'll be in contact with you to kind of get you on the roster." We would appreciate not cold calling people if they haven't been, kind of someone that might be interested.
All right, any other questions? Maybe the next question should be any volunteers?
I would volunteer, but I would agree with Brad that I feel all members of the commission should sit on one of the selections, just to have an idea of what's going on.
I've done it in the past, and it's very, very good experience.
Yeah, same here. Deb brought me in I guess it's probably been a couple years ago now, and it
Yeah.
actually was really interesting. So is there anyone else who'd like to
I
volunteer?
would be, yes, I would be interested in volunteering for that.
Okay, Monica.
This is Monica.
Brad, I see your hand popping up. Okay. Anyone else?
Not now, but in the
This
future.
is Joe.
Yeah.
Would be interested.
Sorry, Joe, can you say that again? He's interested? Okay. and so-
This is Joe. I would be interested.
Okay. Fantastic. We needed 2, we got 4. We're already
great.
doubling.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. All right, well, let me ask one procedural question, Nicole. Do we need to vote on each motion independently?
No, you can lump them together. And I think really now that we've kind of gone through the motions, I think I just would like action on the process we've presented and introduced. If there's any, flaws in that, to let us know now, or let us know that more time is needed to discuss this. And then the last one, kind of authorize our staff to continue working with the subcommittee to maybe vet any questions between now and when we would open the call for the most recent call.
Okay. So with the review of those 3 motions, are there any additional questions or discussions? Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, does somebody want to formally make the motion?
I will.
Thank you. A second?
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion's passed. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the review of the project lists and timelines.
Thank you. You guys are going to be really tired of hearing me talk. So, so this, there's no action needed today. Certainly would seek your support, though, informally. And we kind of on the heels of Reach Partners presentation in November, here is a list of the activities that we intend to take on for 2022 and approximate deadline. So these deadlines are very much moving targets, but the idea and concept would be to stagger these timelines so we didn't have artists, is to stagger the timeline so that the communication out to the arts community wouldn't get confused with maybe other activities happening. I can see a lot of confusion in the future. And so I'd be glad to explain these one by one, or I think some of them are self-explanatory, but maybe I'll just, for the sake of time, see if anybody has questions on these or would like further discussion or more formal presentation on any of the goals or missions.
Any questions? Ann?
Can you just explain more about what's going on with the bus wraps? That's one I'm not familiar with from the list.
Yeah, so that's kind of new. That was Commissioner Strand in outreach with our Metro Transit bus agency. Our intention is to our staff to work with the transit staff and offer that we would run a call for arts or images or whatever we're asking for, that we would run it from our office for the transit department to kind of implement. And so there's some coordination that needs to be happen at the staff level. And but the idea, I think Commissioner Strand's idea in talking with the transit staff is that there would be 6 or 7 buses that would have wraps, right? Typically we would sell those as advertising, and for whatever reason, I guess they're falling out of favor for advertising. And so we thought an alternative, and Commissioner Strand's excitement of that, it was something a little bit more exciting, would be art and showcase our community's talents.
I know in the last couple of years, we've had to pull back due to the pandemic on so many projects. It's exciting to see a comprehensive list and look up, how much we're going to actually get accomplished this year.
And then I guess I'll just call the fourth bullet point, the Public Art Capital Project. That was for those that are newer on the board. I think Deb, you were the chair at the time, and we had drafted an RFP. We were just about to go live with it in March 2020. We'd like to brush that off. We worked with a committee of community members, and we'll send you a draft of that and start to look for, kind of edits and comments and get that ready to hopefully pick up where we left off in March 2020.
Fantastic.
Oh, I would just like to add to that is that call is a result of meetings with a number of community members who came together and from, gosh, I don't know, there must have been 9 or 10 of us came together and kind of hammered out maybe, what we would like to, something in the city of Fargo that was really noteworthy and we could potentially become known for. So that was kind of the thought behind it.
Fantastic. Any questions? And there's nothing, there's no action to vote on or anything with that, correct?
No.
Yep.
We'll come to you like project by project to get action.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion, or we will move on? All right, the next item on the agenda is the Fargo School District Utility Box Project.
Yeah, we're excited about this, getting traction on some activities that the Arts and Culture Commission took on last year and made happen. We're really excited about it. So thanks to the Neighborhood Committee, Deb, Ann, and Tracy, hopefully I'm not forgetting somebody, and reached out to Sharon and I, the visual arts curriculum at the Fargo School District last year, and we're able to kind of create a arts curriculum. And in your packet is, I don't quite know, a lot of specifics on the how the teachers integrated this into their programs yet. But what was submitted to me from Sharon is they're requesting these images that are in your packet to wrap actual boxes. Our engineering office and Sharon's team will work on selecting which boxes. Obviously, some of them related to the schools, trying to find schools in the neighborhoods. And so we'll work on those boxes. Process-wise, what we're seeking from you today is approval of the art itself, the way it works to get permission to wrap it. We then take it to City Commission, be consent agenda, and then we'd be authorized to go and get it executed this spring as soon as it warms up. We'd most likely do what DCP had in the past and hire office sign company to actually do the wrapping and work more closely with Sharon and the student and the faculty to figure out if there's any, we were playing around with the idea of ribbon cutting kind of ceremonies or kind of community activities related to the location of where these boxes end up. So tonight, we're seeking your approval and be glad to answer any questions.
I guess the question that I have right off the bat is, I really enjoy some of the artwork in the back. I do question the really specific, like school-specific logos, or is the intent that they would only be used just on their property? Or, like the Trojan, I'm not sure that would go over well in South Fargo. Or Spartan, sorry, Spartan.
And also, why aren't all the logos included? That's what kind of caught
Well,
me.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
wondering if there isn't a logo for each piece of art, so that each piece of art would also include, the wrap would also include the logo.
Well, the school of where the artist
For
came from?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that what it is?
okay.
Is-
Maybe
is-
we-
Am I right on that?
I honestly don't quite know. COVID's wreaking its havoc in communications. And so, so there's some details I'm lacking. We would work with the schools to make sure it's logical. And if the box was on the property or in the, logically made sense, we would work with them on where the logos. I don't know if the logos are sponsoring the actual art and or vice versa.
There's 6 logos and 6 pieces of art, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, understanding, that makes more sense,
Makes
just,
sense, yeah. They
on
weren't all
its-
represented.
yeah.
Gotcha.
And I shared Tracy's concern when I opened up and was reading through the file, and that was the first thing I saw was basically a handful of logos. Expecting to see original art, my heart kind of sunk. And I was like, no, that's not the intent. So I do know, and I did notice that like with the several of the wraps downtown, you know, often on the sides of the panels, the short sides, there are logos for the sponsoring organizations and those that were in support of the art that's on the larger
Sure.
face. So it's my hope that that's the intent, that these are sort of accenting the box as supplemental information to identify the artist is from this school perhaps, or from this community, and that the boxes are not being wrapped with logos. So as long as,
Yeah, we're not wrapping logos.
no.
We'll get that clarity.
So please get that clarity, but the art is fabulous, and it would be really fun to see, you know, something done with like, whether it's covering the boxes with black velvet and kind of recognizing them, or somehow acknowledging that something's coming, a box near you. You know, there's lots of things that could be done to kind of hype this up a little bit and draw some interest in it before the actual unveiling.
One other thing I was going to just mention that I think would be, at least through my eyes, would be wonderful is to have something about the artist. Because, I mean, these are kids, right? Like, this is a huge thing when you're 12, 13, or whatever your age would be. And seeing if they'd be willing to express what was the thought behind their artwork.
And I think they're going to have I think the child's first name, the initial of their last name, and their grade
Sure.
will be included with the art. At least that's what we talked about. So they'll have that. And then we'd also talked about, because as I understand it, there was a little bit of competition and our art was selected from a class. So we also talked about the potential of having all of the art exhibited in like in a small little reception or something, but that's something,
Cool.
those are details we haven't worked out yet.
Oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
I would just say that I can imagine this will, the first time through something like this, I think you'll always get less applicants, but I think as this begins to be implemented, I can just see this being quite huge in a couple of years, where there's lots and lots of applicants,
Oh, that'll be awesome.
entrants.
Yeah, amen.
Entrance. Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be awesome.
All right, well, step one to that day. Okay, well, are there any other discussion points on this? We ready to make a motion? Does anyone want to make the motion? Okay,
I move to recommend approval to the art to the city commission, authorize the city staff to execute the RAP program on neighborhood utility boxes.
second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? All right, motion approved. Next item is the yearly review of our bylaws. Nicole, sorry. Megan, do you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, thank you. So we just wanted to point out, as Chair, that you mentioned that it's always a good idea to annually review the bylaws, and along with that this year, there's a little bit of cleanup that you might have noticed. And so at the last meeting, your commission has agreed to have bi-monthly or every other meetings beginning this year, starting with January. And so on the first page, you'll see, and due to those meeting dates, the annual meeting would not be held in June, as this commission would not meet, so that would be moved to July. On the following page, it just notes that the meetings, instead of being monthly, would be every other month and beginning at 5. And then again, meeting in January. So those are the only changes. They're redlined. Hopefully you have a colored copy so that you can see them. And then again, looking at them annually, just as a good practice to do. So if your commission is ready to make a motion on the bylaws, there's a motion in the staff report.
Does anyone want to make the motion?
I would make a motion to approve the bylaws as presented.
Second?
Second.
Fantastic. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, the motion passes. All right, the next item on the agenda is the 2022 Communications Plan draft for review.
So this is a laydown item. This is the one that has the green bar on top. And this was, so back in 2018, several members of the board who are still here today, members Kolpak and Joe Williams and Deb Williams and City Commissioner Arlette Preston, put together a communication plan that the Arts and Culture Commission reviewed several times back in 2018 and was kind of never really fully off the ground. It was a really good basis for kind of taking the show on the road, if some of you recall. And so since that time, which is hard to believe it's been that long, since 2018, but since that time, this committee has, or this commission has kind of honed in a bit more, as we've seen, especially your agenda shows that today, honed in on the work of the Arts and Culture Committee, largely due to the subcommittee work that you all have been doing. And along with, as Nicole has mentioned, our further coordination with our communications department within the city. So in working with Reach Partners, they brushed off the 2018 plan. And so I'm just going to talk briefly, just kind of hit the high points. And if you've got comments or questions, we can certainly talk about them, but we're intending to have discussion at the March meeting. So basically what this does, it's a bit shorter than what you've seen, and we anticipate maybe some more additional items coming out beyond this. But right now what we have is it really keeps the basics of the original plan kind of intact and just aligning with your commission's work plan. So the things that are continued here are the objectives, the audiences, measures of success, the communication strategies, the messages, and the tactics or actions. So all those are just kind of refined and just aligning with all of the things that you've been working on and talking about over the last several months or even year or so. So if there's any questions or comments at this time, we'd be glad to talk about them. We'd ask also if you've got anything. We're anticipating discussion at your March meeting. If you've got comments even ahead of that, you can certainly email me or Nicole ahead of time as well. But we're looking forward to discussion in a couple months.
Fantastic. Thank you, Megan. Any questions? Okay. All right. I guess let's move on to the subcommittee reports. Does someone from the capacity committee want to give us a quick update?
We've been looking at the call, finding that document. In December, the Arts for the Holidays event was held, which was very successful. All the feedback from the artists was positive. The only negative feedback we got was from some of the organizations that the communication should have been better, and that next, if it happens again, they would like to be on the floor with the artists rather than in the atrium area.
Okay. Anything else? Does somebody from the neighborhood committee want to give an update?
I can do that. Well, I don't know, I think I speak for all three of us when I say that this utility boxing moving forward is very exciting. And the other thing we've been working on and have been having trouble putting together a meeting with Ainsley Renfro with Fargo Public Schools, and she is the performing arts curriculum specialist. And we wanted to visit with her, maybe getting some kind of a program going with public art, with the performing arts kids, as well as the visual arts. Thank you. So we're probably not going to be able to meet with her for a couple of months. Her and her husband just adopted a baby, and she started family leave on Monday. So we got that on pause a little bit, but we're still working for it. So that's what we have.
All right, the development committee, I can tell you, has not met because I had COVID. So, but Nicole and I were talking beforehand, and you know, we'll be getting the subcommittee back together again and actually starting to focus more and helping to tweak the communications plan, as amongst a few other things. But that's going to be an exciting thing to advance. So let's go to the staff report. Megan, or thank you?
These are just really quick updates. So I think Nicole had already talked about this, but upcoming will be called for the panels outside of City Hall here. So more to come on that. And then outside or out in the hallways, hopefully, if you haven't had a chance to stop by, but an exhibit is out there. Artist Emily Brooks has some art. So in working with the Arts Partnership on their Artworks program for the year 2020, there'll be a number of rotating exhibits with some coordinated communications to come out very shortly on that. So just some quick updates for you. In your packet has some additional information about the artist as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. At this time, let's see, yeah. I guess at this time we could take public comments. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Okay. I believe we have 2 minutes, is that correct? If you could please state your name.
Yeah, Christopher Cohn, Fargo resident. So I don't think, we didn't finish the discussion on conflicts of interest. I had questions about what the director of planning said at the last meeting when we discussed it, and she suggested that an example of somebody who worked for an engineering company, was sitting on a city engineering panel, I think it was, would still be able to vote if their company's contract came up for a vote. She said that would not be a conflict of interest. No, I think it's the opposite. That would be a conflict of interest, because can you imagine voting against your own company's contract and then going into your office the next Monday and being called in to the director's office to explain why you voted against your own company's contract? So I was told to talk to the city attorney regarding my questions on this. So I did direct my questions to him. And I asked him specifically about that. Did he agree with her example or not? He did not answer, and now he retired. So also, it's clear that the state law on conflicts of interest is very weak, and it's not really designed for preventing conflicts of interest or problems with the appearance of conflicts of interest. And also I've looked at the city policy itself, and it's also very weak. So, but I want to make it clear that you don't have to ignore conflicts of interest just because state law is weak or the city policy is weak. It's an ethical thing, and it was something that keeps the public trusting the government. So it's something that is advisable to follow, and it's it's a well understood topic regarding conflicts of interest. And one of you up here is again going to be asking for a TAP grant this year, I know, and then you'll all be voting on whether or not to recommend additional funding for TAP, and that's the conflict of interest. And it doesn't matter what pot of money it's coming from. The commonality is TAP itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn.
Maybe if you'd like,
Sure.
if it,
The city
to-
like to respond?
yeah, I think we can certainly talk about this offline. I think at the November meeting, the city attorney was here to address your questions. And I guess what I would just encourage for, really the discussions of conflict of interest are, in my opinion, beyond the point of reference for the, board members. You're all volunteers. I would say if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to our city attorney. But, I think, I can communicate more with Mr. Cohen offline, and it's really a discussion between him and our city attorney or the city commission as those processes, at least is my recommendation.
All right, thank you. Okay, any announcements? David? All right. Well, then that adjourns this meeting, and our next meeting will be March, I gotta put my glasses on, 16th of 2022. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.